Welcome to the place inside. This is your host, Laurence Galian, and this is podcast number 20. The 1st Earth Battalion was the name proposed by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Channon, a U.S. soldier who had served in Vietnam, for his idea of a new military to be organized along New Age lines. Lieutenant Colonel Channon believes the Army can be the principal moral and ethical basis on which politics can harmonize in the name of the Earth. Since quote-unquote Earthkind has grown from pack to village to tribe to territory and then to nation, Lieutenant Colonel Channon envisions going from nation to planet next, and thereby declares the 1st Earth Battalion's primary allegiance to the planet. Making the planet whole requires the ethical use of force based on the collective conscience. In his Operations Field Manual titled Evolutionary Tactics, Lieutenant Colonel Channon lists some of the important missions of the Earth Battalion as urban pioneers, counter-hostage force, disaster rescue, eco pioneers, animal rescue. The 1st Earth Battalion will organize itself informally. Uniforms without uniformity, structure without status, and unity powered by diversity, since its members will be multicultural, with each race contributing to, quote, rainbow power, unquote. As a guiding principle, members of the 1st Earth Battalion seek non-destructive methods of conflict resolution because their first loyalty is to the planet. The warrior monk ethos. Service members of the 1st Earth Battalion would practice meditation, yogic cat stretches, and primal screams to attain battle readiness, and use shiatsu and other techniques as battlefield first aid. Primal screams are very useful. As they were popular around 40 years ago, it is important to quickly review the primal scream. We all have horrible thoughts and emotions inside us. We hide these thoughts and emotions from ourselves. If you cannot admit this about yourself, you need to go out for a long walkabout, a trek deep into the forest, and a long camping trip. You will deeply question yourself and look into yourself honestly about this issue. Ask yourself, do I ever have nightmares? What are nightmares? They are so terrifying, and yet they are my nightmares. They don't belong to anyone else. I must be the source, therefore, of these nightmares. Of course you are. We all have to deal with thoughts that often go way back to our earliest times. I myself, Laurence Galian, was adopted. I spent a while in an orphanage as an infant. I did extensive research about my adoption and all aspects related to it later on in my life. One thing I discovered was that all the children in this particular orphanage were horribly abused by the people in charge of taking care of the infants. Through this research, I discovered one source of deep pain inside me, the daily experience of dying. When I was a newborn baby in the orphanage, I have had a repeated dream of myself in a town square at night. The wind is blowing, it's blowing leaves and papers and things like that through this dark town square, and there are some booths with some ropes and everything to hang up the goods, and they're hanging by two kind of hooks, like clothespins, is a dried up, desiccated baby. After a while, I faced the fact that that dried up, desiccated baby was me. But those of us who grew up in the 60s We all remember the fallout shelters. We all remember the shelter drills or radiation drills where we had to climb under our desks and put our hands over our heads to prepare ourselves for nuclear attack. This was all when I was about 8 years old. Can you imagine an 8-year-old having to deal with the reality of nuclear war? Sometimes they tried something different and had us line up in the hallway or there was a basement area in our school. And then we would squat with our hands over our heads. I guess that was the very latest in nuclear blast protection. Seeing films of nuclear blasts on TV, seeing John F. Kennedy with the Cuban Missile Crisis unfolding on television, seeing a company that sold bomb shelters in our local mall. They actually had a family living in a real bomb shelter in the mall, and for an hour each day you could peek inside a small window and actually look at the family. All of this made nuclear annihilation of the earth, and me in particular, very real. I ordered books from the government printing office on how to build your own nuclear shelter. At age 10, I was something of an expert in how to build atomic bomb shelters. Nuclear war was very real to our generation and left very real scars in our psyches. Now we face other threats, some of them made up, some of them real, and some of the made up ones just as scary because of the fact that someone is making them up. We have AIDS, HIV, phantom terrorist, biological war and terrorism, electromagnetic pulse bombs, gigantic solar flares, time slips, HAARP, ecological mayhem, radiation drifting over us from Japan's nuclear reactors, which incidentally may have been deliberately bombed, and about which any recent updates have been apparently banned, as I see and hear nothing about Japan's reactors on the news anymore. Then there's also the poisonous rain coming from the oil leak and maybe methane leak in the Gulf of Mexico, about which also a media blackout has been imposed. A possible hidden planet X on a collision course with the Earth, a black pope, in other words, a living descendant of the worst imaginable alien intelligence resident on this planet, and finally attacks from very evil, very sentient, and very warlike extraterrestrials, and warfare going on inside our brains being an actual battlefield where an alien may be residing and attempting to take control and make you believe it already has control of you. It makes me wonder when people say that we cannot be attacked by evil aliens from space. When Rome was attacked by the Germanic forces from the north, the Northern War tribes, and Eastern Europe to Constantinople and beyond to the Silk Road was decimated by Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, believe it or not, was extremely sophisticated. Actually, something of great interest. Genghis Khan had a huge respect for the shaman priest warriors of any city, country, state. Rarely would he kill them, and he respected their powers. So, the primal scream. You go to a place far from any other human being. Being in your own car is helpful. Drive to a spot where you can scream bloody murder and no one will hear you. And then gradually start making a noise. Any noise is good, while moving your head back and forth from the right to the left. Just like an ah type sound would be great. Now gradually make this sound louder and louder as you continue moving your head back and forth from side to side. But now this time, start to add punching some pillows that you've brought with you, or you can punch the seats of your car. But be careful. The strength which is going to come out of you is unimaginable, and you may destroy your car seats. I'm just warning you. I would recommend bringing some old pillows or a mattress. And remember to protect your hands. It may be a good idea to wear some gloves. Then just let loose. Start going from shouting to full-scale screaming. If saying particular words help you to let loose with the anger, fear, or jealousy or other emotions inside you, shout those words. Shout them over and over. But ultimately you must get it up to a scream. Now often what you label as some medical problem is in fact a need to scream. Many people suffering from allergies or phobias, they need to scream. Many people who are afraid to leave their homes need to scream. Many people who have been or are being abused, abducted, kidnapped, need to scream. 1st Earth Battalion trainees would learn to fast for a week, drinking only juice, and then eating only nuts and grains for a month. You should learn how to survive on the natural plants, animals, and insects in your immediate surroundings. Often individuals offer courses in local learning centers on how to identify herbs, trees, edible berries, mushrooms, and so forth. Or you may connect up with a shaman or a wise woman healer who can teach you these things. Take these courses. They can prove very, very helpful. The 1st Earth Battalion states that the trainee would do the following. And now, I'm going to quote directly from them. Quote, they would be able to fall in love with everyone, realize the different paths of spirit, perceive the auras of living organisms, attain the power to pass through objects such as walls, which is known as phasing, bend metal by using the power of the mind, which is known as psychokinesis, walk on fire, operate based on spirit communications, which is known as mediumship, become a peacemaker, actually change a violent pattern in the world. This is known as the Maharishi effect. Organize a tree plant with kids. Calculate faster than a computer. Control their heart rate and respiration with no ill effects. Intuit information from the past, which is known as retrocognition, or from the future, which is known as precognition. Now also have out-of-body experiences, live off of nature for 20 days, be 90% plus a vegetarian, and be able to intuit other people's thoughts and feelings via telepathy. Lieutenant Colonel Channon coined the term, quote, warrior monk, unquote, for these new service members of the 1st Earth Battalion, which is anyone who has the presence, service, and dedication of a monk, and the absolute skill and precision of a warrior. In quote, the warrior monk's vision, unquote, Channon imagines an army made up of awakened warriors. Channon's ideal warrior monk would be proficient at every level of force. The warrior monk will learn different self-defense systems of martial arts, such as Tai Chi, Aikido, etc., which are based on the notion of using the force of their attackers against themselves. To alleviate negative stressors and promote healing in self and others, the warrior monk will employ various affirmations, relaxation, and visualization techniques, as well as a number of methods like yoga, qigong, and reiki to help strengthen and improve the body-mind connection with spirit. They have something called their credo. According to the book Mind Wars by Ronald McRae, each member of the 1st Earth Battalion is sworn to uphold the credo of, quote, high commandos and guerrilla gurus, unquote. I will quote directly from that. Quote, I have the capacity and therefore the duty to contribute to the development of myself, my associates, and our planet. Simultaneously, now, I will organize a self-promoting high commando group that will create and perform evolutionary breakthrough actions on behalf of people and planet. One people, one planet. I will then pass on this concept to others who are capable of generating further self-organizing commando teams. I will await the time when my group can connect naturally with others at higher and higher levels of awareness and performance, the natural guard, end quote. Another spiritual practice of the 1st Earth Battalion is called the Earth Prayer. Quote, Mother Earth, my life support system. As a soldier, I must drink your blue water, live inside your red clay, and eat your green skin. I pray my boots will always kiss your face, and my footsteps match your heartbeat. Carry my body through space and time. You are my connection to the universe, and all that comes after. I am yours, and you are mine. I salute you. Now, let's go to the men who stare at goats. According to the book The Men Who Stare at Goats by journalist John Ronson, which supposedly is a very fine book, Channon spent time in the 70s with many of the people in California credited with starting the human potential movement. This was the forerunner of what was to become the New Age movement. And now the New Age movement itself has developed into several areas. One area being the entire industry spawned from the book and film The Secret. And another movement being the millennialist end of the world movement surrounding December 21st, 2012. A great deal of these movements indeed contain much truth. However, I truly dislike those who seek only to make money from spiritual truth. Who dares to say they own the rights to the universal spirit? I've said before, one has the right to be as a beggar, as the wise men and women of the past were. In other words, to ask for enough money so that they can continue their work. In other words, to have food and a roof over their heads. Basically, the Buddhist rice begging bowl. Another way of putting this is to say that one has the right to be paid for his or her time, but not for what he or she is communicating or transmitting during that time. one must proceed from a place of integrity. Yet, how can one justify being a millionaire while claiming to be a spiritual teacher? Truth is truth, and no one owns truth. A guru may have millions of dollars in the bank and still teach truth. The karmic consequences are upon him and not on you. Unless you are somehow joining forces with him or her and riding their waves somehow, you are innocent. But we see a lot of materialism creeping into just about every spiritual path in existence. 100 years ago, this would have seemed ludicrous and amazing, frankly. But today, a yogi guru, a Buddhist lama, a non-dual devotee, a servant of the man from Galilee, all can boast incomes of over $1 million. And they write books justifying their wealth and telling you that Jesus would want you to be rich also. Well, manifesting a comfortable life is fine. It is the very moment when you begin to have things that you don't use. That is the very moment your downfall begins. Did you ever think about that? For example, maybe a couple has 2 cars. Fine. And maybe the husband or wife really loves cars and driving them fast. So okay, they get a 3rd car. But as soon as they get their car collection going with their 4th and 5th car, well, in my book, they have given up their integrity. Do you know what I mean? Everything has an inherent meaning and purpose for its existence. If it is not to be utilized, it cannot fulfill its purpose, and the fault rests with you. It's great to have a beautiful dining table that you really enjoy. It is fulfilling its purpose of being a table on which you serve your meals, entertain guests, have coffee, ice cream late at night. But if you have a dining table in some room that you never use, or worse, if you have an unused dining table in the basement or attic, then you have crossed the line, my friend. I have tried to illustrate this concept by making the analogies as simple and direct as possible. Everything has a purpose and needs to fulfill itself or be fulfilled. Food needs to be eaten. Letting good food rot is to deny and prevent the food from fulfilling its purpose, to feed you. So that is where I draw the line. All of matter looks to the fully actualized human being to raise it up to the higher energy realms. In Sufism, there is something called the 99 names of Allah. Allah is also called the ultimate reality by the Sufis. Each name is an attribute or quality of Allah. It is said that Allah has placed all 99 names or attributes inside the human being, and they all can be activated. If you do not activate the name, then you are wasting something precious. For example, one of the names is the Protector. Another name is the Mighty. If you do not express these names in your life, you are not expressing your full divine potential as a guardian of planet Earth. There is also the name the All-Hearing and the Subtle One. So you can see how the human being is actually built up, constructed, if you will, by these building blocks called the names of Allah. So we spoke about inanimate objects, but also your body is just as important. If you do not allow your muscles, for example, to do what they were meant to do, then you are not allowing them to fulfill their purpose, and you are entering into negativity. In other words, if you are not allowing your muscles to support you, to defend you, to expedite, or to respond, you are blocking their spiritual fulfillment. The ancient Kabbalist said that everything has a divine spark in it, and it is the work of the human being to raise up the divine sparks in everything. Now, there is something called the field, and we've spoken about that. You must work with the field in whatever form it takes, from dense to subtle. If you treat things as your slaves, you will in turn be treated as a slave by those things. If you want matter to come to your assistance when you are in trouble, then you must be a friend to matter and help it in its evolutionary process. Okay, do you get that? You know you want to work with the cities, you know you want to work with certain telekinesis powers, you want to work with matter, but if you disrespect matter, if you do not help matter to evolve, then why do you expect matter to respond to you? And if you treat yourself as a slave, then you really need a wake-up call. So this is your call, but I believe that the only one to serve is the one universal force as it manifests as all that is, your fellow human beings and your mother, the earth. You might call her Sophia. Anyway, Channon subsequently wrote an operations manual for a First Earth Battalion. This manual was a 125-page mixture of drawings, graphs, maps, polemical essays, and point-by-point redesigns of every aspect of military life, and this is still available as a reprint on Amazon.com. In LTC Channon's First Earth Battalion, the new battlefield uniform, this is great. It would include pouches for things like ginseng regulators, divining tools, foodstuffs to enhance night vision. There are also herbs to enhance high altitude walking, like in the Colorado Rockies, and a loudspeaker that would automatically emit, quote, indigenous music and words of peace, unquote. This reminds me a lot of Peter Lamborn Wilson's temporary autonomous zones, or TAZ, T-A-Z. It may sound a bit silly, and some of it really is as we read it now, but that does not mean that the concept is silly. With some deep thinking and consideration and some modern tweaking, we can come up with exactly what we need to carry with us now into the spiritual battlefield. Warrior monks will carry the best equipment modern technology can produce into the battlefield. Maybe lightweight laser stun guns, hallucinogenic mortars, acupuncture kits, dowsing rods for locating hidden tunnels and mines, and so forth. Rather than using bullets and munitions, Channon envisaged how this new force would attempt to first win the hearts and minds of the enemy by using positive vibrations. We know now, through double-blind scientific studies, conducted by such people as Lynn McTaggart, who we mentioned in our last podcast, that positive vibrations in the form of heart coherence do produce positive effects in the community and the world. If these measures were not enough to pacify the enemy, members would employ the use of unconventional but non-lethal weapons to subdue them. Lethal force was to be a last resort. We, and I'm speaking Laurence Galian, do not recommend lethal force in this program, and that information about Channon's program is for informational purposes only. I reiterate, for informational purposes only. Intuition would be consulted first and foremost by battalion members. A movie based on the book, released in autumn of 2009, starring George Clooney, Ewan McGregor, Jeff Bridges, and Kevin Spacey, retitled the 1st Earth Battalion as the, quote, New Earth Army. Let me recommend some transformational medicine for you, otherwise known as mind-expanding word communications, or BOOKS. Starting first with McRae, RF. Okay, that's MC, capital RAE. And this is dated 1984. The title is Mind Wars, the true story of government research into the military potential of psychic weapons. And it was printed in New York by St. Martin's Press. Next, Ferguson, Ferguson, first initial M as in Martin, published 1980, entitled The Aquarian Conspiracy, Personal and Social Transformation in Our Time, printed in Los Angeles, California, by J.P. Tarcher, Incorporated. Then, Channon himself, J. first initial, 2009, entitled Evolutionary Tactics, in parentheses, 1st Earth Battalion's Operation Manual, in reprint of original manual of the 70s, end parentheses, printed in Scotts Valley, California, and by the publisher CreateSpace. I'm going to give you that again. Channon, CHANNON, first initial J as in Jesus, 2009, the title Evolutionary Tactics, parentheses, 1st Earth Battalion's Operation Manual, reprint of original manual of the 70s, close parentheses, Scotts Valley, California, and that's printed by the publisher CreateSpace. Next, by Druckmann, Druckman, first initial D as in David, and Sweats, S as in Sam, W-E, T as in Thomas, S as in Sam, first initials J as in Joseph, A as in Anthony, editors, 1988, Enhancing Human Performance, Issues, Theories, and Techniques, printed in Washington, D.C., the National Academy Press. Going on, Fields, Fields, first initial R as in Robert, 1994, The Awakened Warrior, Living with Courage, Compassion, and Discipline, printed in New York by Tarcher, Tarcher. And then we go to Mandelbaum, M as in Martin, M-A-N as in Norman, D-E-L-B-A-U-M as in Martin, W-A 2002, titled The Psychic Battlefield, A History of the Military Occult Complex. Get that, The Psychic Battlefield, A History of the Military-Occult Complex, printed in New York, St. Martin's Griffin, Griffin. Okay, just got a couple more. Thomas is the last name, Thomas, first initial B as in boy, 2006, titled Immortal Combat, Portrait of a True Warrior, printed in Berkeley, California, by Blue Snake Books. And finally, Ronson, Ronson, first initial J as in Joseph, 2004, The Men Who Stare at Goats, printed in New York by Simon & Schuster. The military's interest in Eastern and alternative practices is once again on the rise. Warrior mind training, apparently based on ancient samurai techniques, is being taught at Camp Lejeune as a possible treatment for PTSD, and I think for a lot else. I think that PTSD thing is a lot of bunk. I think it's being taught for other purposes. Elsewhere, the Army has a $4 million initiative exploring other approaches, including, get this, Reiki, transcendental meditation, and bioenergy. The Air Force is looking into acupuncture for battlefield pain relief. I am not implying, and I'm speaking Laurence Galian, is not implying that the United States Army is now a soft, cuddly, and safe fighting unit. I am talking about the way of the sacred warrior and how it has manifested in the last 30 to 40 years up into the present. Our purpose is to form the metaphysical freedom fighters, free of any coercion or aggression as represented by the United States Armed Forces. We do not believe in coercion or aggression. A number of Channon's ideas on training were investigated by the Pentagon. Well, of course we can imagine that. They're always interested in anything that works. And the 1st Earth Battalion had over 800 officers and bureaucrats on its mailing list, including 8 generals and an undersecretary of defense. Some ideas proposed in the writings of Channon later found their way into military procedures for psychological warfare. Within weeks of the publication of the 1st Earth Battalion Operations Manual in the spring of 1979, soldiers throughout the United States Army began seriously trying to implement his ideas. One example was when the Army's Intelligence and Security Command, INSCOM, began developing its own remote viewing program in 1979, which was a parapsychological intelligence gathering method that had already been experimentally tested at Stanford Research Institute since 1972 by parapsychologist Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff. 1972, I graduated Holy Trinity High School. Channon's principles may have even contributed to the Army slogan, "Be all you can be." Well, keying off of Channon's blueprint, a special operations experimental team dubbed quote-unquote Jedi Warriors, after the Star Wars craze, were trained in a wide variety and array of Eastern Oriental martial arts and meditative techniques, combined with super strenuous physical training programs. Certain meditative techniques like transcendental meditation have even been applied in group settings to help reduce the number of war casualties significantly. You can go up to Maharishi Yogi's place in the United States, and if you actually will meditate for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, you will earn approximately $700. Now you have to do it for real. You have to meditate, but any form of meditation is acceptable as long as you are genuinely meditating, and they will pay you. You don't have to necessarily do it full-time. You can do it part-time, but this is all part of Maharishi Yogi's program of protecting the world through having a certain number of people constantly meditating all the time. Now, Ronson specifically cites the 1st Earth Battalion Manual's proposal to use music to affect psychic mind change. Now, I've been promising you a program for a long time, and we're going to do it about all the mind frequencies and all the benefits that they can provide, and also all the negative things that they can do, and that the Army is actively taking advantage of. Now, if you have been a loyal listener or watcher of our video podcast, you will know by now that I am committed to bringing you information, detailed information on super sensible physical powers that you can use for self-defense against the horrible alien warlords that are on this planet and those evil extraterrestrials who seek to invade this planet. Accordingly, we bring you now an extremely powerful technique that surprisingly not many people know of. You know also that I am committed to walking my talk and not just sitting down in front of a microphone getting fat like many famous hosts do. Now, one host in excellent physical shape is George Noory of Coast to Coast or Sea to Sea. Obviously, this is one reason why the one universal intelligence placed him in the very special position he holds today, a position of great responsibility, that of having the great wisdom teachers of today communicating powerful and essential messages to the public. However, he is not the only one. As George Noory takes care of his physical image, I studied Aikido in New York City with a 6th degree black belt and continued studying on Long Island with a 4th degree black belt. One of the great things about podcast is that you can return to listen to podcasts you missed anytime. I do not charge for this information, and I want you to go back and listen to past shows if you've missed them, because I give out all sorts of powerful information in each and every show. Just like life, when we have good days and we have bad days, so too some shows are better than other shows. Okay, that's just the way it is, but the transmission always flows. You are used to judging things like podcasts, videos, TV shows, etc. in ways that frankly are not helpful to you. You are attracted to something that is known in esoteric and occult circles as glamour. Now, glamour is not what some of you listeners my age may think it is. I'm not talking about fashion or bling or anything like that. Glamour is similar to jewelry in an allegorical sense. We see something shine, and many people, like little monkeys, get all excited about the little shiny things. Yes, it is of course important to pay attention to those teachers who are well prepared and who have valuable information to share with you. However, the type of clothing or lack of clothing is not important. There's a fellow who sells some kind of raw foods diet who is always half naked in his videos on YouTube showing off his muscles. He's clearly a narcissist. Likewise, there's a woman who is interested in words, who is always appearing in tight, revealing shirts which give men a good look at her cleavage. The world is facing annihilation, and people are watching and listening to such narcissistic, ego-focused garbage. Why? Because of glamour. Glamour results from a negative emotional focus. The dissipation of glamour depends on illumined thinking. There's a great book, it's called Glamour, A World Problem by Alice A. Bailey, and her last name is Bailey. And just ignore Michael Tazarian when he puts her down. Michael Tazarian, I've said it before, is very great and says some of the most fantastic things, but I hate to disillusion you, but also Michael Tazarian is wrong about a lot of things. So you have got to check his facts, okay? And if you want to hold me to that, I can prove it to you. But I have nothing but kudos for Michael Tazarian because of the fantastic work that he does. Anyway, Alice A. Bailey defines glamour as a mental illusion when intensified by desire, okay, that it occurs on the astral plane, and it grows and grows and grows, this mental illusion, okay? It's fed by desire. You get that? Now here's Alice Bailey speaking. Quote, "Glamour has been likened to a mist or fog in which the aspirant wanders and which distorts all that he sees and contacts, preventing him from ever seeing life truly or clearly, or the conditions surrounding him as they essentially are. He is deceived by the appearance and forgets that which the appearance veils. The emanatory astral reactions which each human being initiates ever surround him, and through this fog and mist he looks out upon a distorted world." Unquote. Very intense, wouldn't you say? The human race is held in sway, Bailey says, quote, "by a very ancient glamour or series of glamours, of entrenched desires, potent aspirations of some kind, and definitely human-made forms which seek to hold the consciousness of humanity upon the astral plane. Such a glamorous concept is that of money and its materialistic value. This glamorous desire is like a dense fog, cutting off the vision of truth and distorting a very large number of human values." Unquote. I agree with her 100% there, but I would add not only human-made. She speaks of human-made forms. I would add that there are also extraterrestrial-made forms that are sent into the astral field. I don't tell you, but I receive some of the most hate-filled messages in emails and in various forms from people who prefer to hide within their religious paradigms or their academic paradigms. They secretly believe that the evil races of aliens will wipe them out. In other words, they're scared. What sickens me, though, is that they don't even have the courage to die trying to defend Mother Earth. Sophia, Pistis Sophia, look into the Gnostics and learn about Sophia, Mother Earth, and their loved ones. You should have the courage to die defending your loved ones. Worse still are those people who are not even aware that they are asleep, and they get excited about things like NASCAR or the World Wrestling Federation. Now, I have nothing against relaxation and spacing out for a while, because the world is tough, and I am asking a lot from you. I am asking you to read a lot. I am asking you to meditate a lot, to do breathing exercises a lot, use psychotronic devices a lot, utilize the Schumann resonance a lot, theta wave frequency sound, MP3s, training your physical body, building electronic psychotronic devices, making art, making music, making love, making temporary autonomous zones. I am asking you to take personal responsibility for your thoughts and feelings. There is no time for blame. There just isn't time. Get on with your training and forget those who have hurt you. Or perhaps you enjoy having your negative emotions become the food of terrible monsters bent upon turning you into a dirty, impotent slave. Is that what you want? Now, there's something called Negung, Mo-Pai Negung. Well, Negung is the science of observing, strengthening, and directing bioenergy or chi, a repository of extraordinary skills such as telekinesis, pyrogenesis, telepathy, remote viewing, and levitation. The esoteric Eastern school known as Mo-Pai has been described as a real-life order of Jedi Knights. Some have even speculated that its history inspired George Lucas's script for Attack of the Clones. Among the ancient Negung lineages still in existence today, the Mo-Pai is characterized by an unusual openness. The school and its headmaster, known by the alias, quote, John Chang, unquote, has been the subject of 2 recent books and a video documentary. Jim McMillan, who identifies himself as a longtime disciple of John Chang, shares some of his experiences in a Q&A session. Question: how did you first become acquainted with the esoteric practice of Negung? Answer: my long-standing relationship with martial arts had become a dead-end journey. I recognized that the mentality of most practitioners, systems, and schools is very self-centered. Practitioners believe only, quote-unquote, their style is completely capable, and that any student can reach the level of past masters. That is why I took my training in another direction around 1988, give or take a year. After taking a seminar from a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, I can't remember his name, I realized that I had wasted years of my time training in Taekwondo and Hapkido. I was easily defeated. It was a wake-up call. After taking some more classes, I tried combining BJJ with my previous styles, but this didn't make me feel any better. I was getting too old, bored of the practice, and physically tired. I realized it was also time to move over for younger men to take over my martial arts school. One evening, I was watching TV and saw a documentary called Ring of Fire. I heard a call deep within my soul. It was an inner compulsion that I had never felt before. I knew instantaneously that I had to find this man who could perform these strange things. After 2 years of researching, I finally decided to just go. A week and a half later, I found my teacher in a city of 3 million on the other side of the world. Question: it is often said that a traditional master will test an aspirant's character and resolve before deciding whether to accept them as a disciple. Did you face any such trials, or were you accepted immediately? Answer: I wish the custom you speak of were true. However, the thrill of being accepted by Pak, the master, John Chang, made up for any apparent absence of traditional testing. Upon my arrival, it took me all of 2 weeks to locate John. I could only meet with him for a few minutes before I had to return to the airport to catch my return flight home. Due to the rush, we had little time for formalities. I found that Pak John was modern in many respects and very traditional in few others. I didn't know what to expect from a culture I was totally unaccustomed with. At our first meeting, Pak John grabbed my arm unexpectedly and told me to flex it to see if I had enough strength for the training. After that, he said, "I'll accept you." And that was that. So I, Laurence Galian, want to interject here an experience I had with a Sufi master in Turkey. When I met him, he lived with his wife in a simple apartment. He wore no special robes and refused any special bowing or formalities. He had a simple red telephone on his kitchen table, one of those old-fashioned telephones, and the phone rang all night from his students all over the world. There was no concept at all of charging for his services or having to reimburse him in any way. Now, after we ate, he spent a while picking up off the table, get this, every single little crumb and putting it in his mouth. He would pick it up with, his two fingers, and he'd put it into his mouth, the tiniest little crumb. You could barely even see it with the naked eye. Remember me talking about redeeming the spiritual sparks in all of matter just a little while ago? This Sufi master was raising the energetic potential of these quote-unquote crumbs as he made them part of himself. The matter of the crumbs, the molecules themselves, join themselves to the host of all the molecules in the master's body. He redeemed each crumb. Then he began slapping me on the back, hard. This went on for some time. He kept whacking me in the back, over and over again in various places on my back. The sacred warrior tradition is not only confined to traditional martial arts teachers, but the Sufis share it also. For them it is called, quote, the art of Sufi chivalry, unquote, and it is a form of Sufi knighthood. So, back to Jim McMillan. He continues, quote, in the beginning and according to Asian custom, I was prepared to sit in front of the master's house and patiently wait for him to answer my questions. But I didn't have to, thank God. Question: what preconceived notions about Qigong, Nigong masters or methods, if any, has your personal experience since proven incorrect? My Negung training has brought fulfillment in ways I never anticipated, and I now see life in a totally different way. In the Mo-Pai, there is a vital link between the present and the past. I refer to my teacher's current relationship with his own long-dead master, who visits at Pak John's request during the Chinese New Year. They speak on matters that I am not privy to, so I am not conversant in Indonesian, nor am I at the level where I can hear the spirit directly. However, the master spirit demonstrates visually that he does exist and is present at these meetings. And this is Laurence Galian here. This reminds me very, very much of the family constellations that I have been telling you about, and which is amazing the way that the field interacts in these meetings, enabling people to energetically connect with their ancestors. So going back to the interview, he continues, to be honest, I was willing to do whatever it took. except for one thing: to become a student and attain certain abilities that I had personally seen. While on my journey, I have found a new sense of profound awareness about my relationship with my Creator, God. I did not expect such a thing would happen. Okay, next question. What sacrifices, time, effort, money, etc. are required of a student in the Mo-Pai? How do these demands compare to your previous experience in various martial arts schools? Answer. Actually, the sacrifices come naturally, as they would in pursuit of any other sincere interest we have. But yes, there are sacrifices, and I have made some that were life-changing. I am frequently asked about the sex issue, conserving Jing. While my normal male hunger remains fully charged, my deep desire has become less focused on sex and on future goals. I was glad to discover I could actually exert control over my natural instincts. I found that I didn't have to be a slave to my instincts, which really made me feel better about myself. Initially, I tried to stay single and did so for several years. However, this did take a toll on me in the form of loneliness and depression. Later, I married. Building up the Dantian isn't what most people think. For those who don't know, this is Laurence Galian. The Dantian is the great field that is found around the navel region of the body. Okay, it is the great well. It is well developed in Qigong practice. I have some small experience studying the Qigong. So Jim McMillan again, quote, "My wife and son have tolerated the time spent on trips and in training. I try to practice when they are in bed, in the early morning or late evening. This way I have avoided too much trouble. Money wasn't a big issue for me initially since I remained single for so long. Now that I am married, money is more of an issue. Prior to marriage, I usually spent a little over $3,000 yearly to visit my teacher. However, the cost has sharply risen since I last visited." Question: how has this training affected your physical and emotional health? Has it made your life easier or harder? Answer: my health actually improved since I started. In Neigong, the deep breathing of our first level of training is actually very beneficial, as many of you already know. However, being that we are all very different, the effects, results will show differently in each of us. I actually overcame a very severe back problem and became so healthy that I went many years without missing a single day of work. I also attribute my improved health to maturity. You come to recognize a larger picture in life than what you had before. During the earlier period of my martial arts training, I always seemed to have some kind of ailment I had to heal or deal with, but I found in the later years that my meditation helped not only my physical condition, but my sparring as well. Still, this wasn't enough to convince me to continue with martial arts. My Neigong training has brought fulfillment in ways I never anticipated, and I now see life in a totally different way. It caused me to understand my relationship with my Lord God as never before. It was like I was somehow infused with knowing Him without intentionally seeking this knowledge. This had a great impact upon my emotional state and helped me through my prior depressive condition that I had been struggling with. Meditation is a very healthy thing to do, both physically and mentally. Your eyes are open to aspects you wouldn't ordinarily see. My observation suggests that if one has greed, power, or any other negative desire in her heart, they will have health problems. Question: many readers are interested in learning more about Neigong, but don't know where to start. Do you have any advice to offer? Answer: concerning admittance into the Mo-Pai, I must always discuss every proposal with my teacher. Not everyone can be admitted. Nevertheless, anyone can contact me, and I will try to reply to everyone. Laurence Galian here again. Yes, It is okay to fight back, but only in self-defense. It is not okay to initiate conflict. I told you once before, killing a human being is like killing yourself and all humanity at once. Focus on developing yourself on all levels. Stop wasting your energy on developing your hatred of certain ethnic and social groups. You desperately need every drop of energy you have. Focus on developing yourself on all energy levels. This ends our transmission for tonight. We will make contact again soon.